The most thrilling, spine-tingling series ever.
From the pages of R.L. Stine's best-selling books,
And the screams go on forever and ever.
We now return to Goosebumps.
Greetings, Goosebumps fans, young and old, big and small. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas, also known as the Goosebumps channel on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'm joined by the rest of my Goosebumps crew, Goosebumps Saucy Fan Bjorn Panwick and Shawan Nick Shaw. Unfortunately, Michael Lilliquist, the ultimate Goosebumps man, was unable to join us this evening, but that's okay because either way, we're still going to talk some Goosebumps. Of course, we always do. Why would it be otherwise? Now, today, we are revisiting the good old Give Yourself Goosebumps series. We're going to talk about the later half of this series, the famous Black Spine Give Yourself Goosebumps. And of course, we are not alone in this. We are very happy to introduce...
I'm Craig White, illustrator for some of the Give Yourself Goosebumps covers.
And Craig is here to join us to talk about the covers that he did for that series. So we're very excited for that. But first, before we get into that, as always, if you are not following the Goosebumps Crew podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now Amazon Music and iHeartRadio, then what the heck are you doing? Because if you are a Goosebumps fan and you love Goosebumps just like we do, then you guys are certainly going to want to follow the podcast. Not only do we have new episodes every Wednesday on YouTube and Tuesday on all our audio platforms, but we get to talk to some amazing guests like Craig White today. So, if you love Goosebumps, make sure you follow us on all our platforms. All right, let's get to the main event. So, of course, as we said before, we have Craig White, and he did the Give Yourself Goosebumps covers starting with number 25, Shop Till You Drop Dead, and he went for the entire rest of the run into the, I believe, February 2000 was the last one that came out. So, we're going to be talking about some of those covers and the works that he did, but before we do that, Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you to that point?
Let's see. So I'm just an illustrator. I started out in art school. I've always been drawing. I have a twin brother as well. Always been drawing, always been doing artwork. So I decided to do that as a career. And then I was an art director for an ad agency for a while, but I've always drawn. And at one point I was doing, we were experimenting. This is way back before computers came out. So when computers came out, we were kind of on the forefront of digital illustration, doing everything you do on a piece of paper and pencil with, doing it with a Wacom tablet on the computer. And somehow or another, I got involved with a friend of my brother's who was looking for digital artists to do comic book trading cards. They wanted digital art instead of airbrush, because I could do airbrush and all that stuff, which I think Tim and Mark were both doing traditional artwork. So that's kind of how a friend of a friend had an agent who was looking for somebody to do digital art for these covers, and they came upon me. So
yeah.
Oh.
And we, I mean, these, like we said, there really was a shift in that series because by the start of the 23rd book, they kind of took a completely different format on the cover. It went from the traditional-ish Goosebumps that you would probably see in the original to something that was more sleek and more like, it was more neon. It kind of had a lot more flashy colors on it.
Yeah, for sure.
It was very much in tune with the times. I mean, this was like the late 90s, so everything was like being turned up to an 11, and they had like Series 2000, which was also continuing that trend. But these covers always fascinated me. I just loved how they looked. I love just the composition. I love the creatures that were on here. But before we get into the specifics, I'm curious to know, what are some of your favorites that you've done?
Definitely, I think we talked about it. I thought that I don't have all the books with me, but I do have most of them. This one was one of my favorites. This was the yeah. That, I don't know why it just came out well. I mean, it's kind of simplified when I look at it, but I like. I guess like I was telling you guys earlier, I like the simplicity of one kind of subject, and this one just kind of fits the bill for me. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I really like
that one too. The one that
I love that the skeleton is green, and like it's not your typical like white skeleton. It's almost like very ghoulish looking, like green color. I love that.
Oh,
yeah, All Day Nightmare is definitely my favorite. 100%. It was the last one I needed to get, and funny enough, it is the last one before the special editions. And I guess it was crazy because like at the time when I was collecting them, you didn't really have internet or anything, so I didn't know what a lot of the later ones looked like. So it was more just trying to find them in the wild. And I remember when I finally did, I was like, oh my God, this is the last one I need. And that cover is amazing. I love it, because like I love the wolves, man. So I think cool. It's awesome. It's awesome. I love the abstract, and it's really creepy. And then you've got like, I love it so much. It's such a dark cover, and
it's pretty scary.
Yeah, that's one thing that, I have a friend.
It's fitting for Goosebumps for sure. Because there's been a ton of werewolf covers, Full Moon Fever, Werewolf Fever Swamp, Werewolf Skin.
Well, here's another werewolf one. Werewolf of Twisted Tree Lodge.
So Stein likes his werewolves.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something really about werewolves and Goosebumps. It's like, I don't know what it is. Like my friend Logan, he's a big fan of Goosebumps as well, and his favorite books were always the Black Spine Choose Your Own Adventure, and his favorite book cover was actually, it came from the internet. I just had to tell you that because he'll be saying to me, hey, like, please tell him like my favorite book is it came from the internet. So cool. There it is.
This one is one of my favorites too. I love this one.
Shout out to you, Logan.
Something like crawling out of the computer screen. I love how it's like just all gooey and slimy all over the place.
Gives you an idea of how long ago this was, because of the computer is actually modeled after the computer I was using at the time, which is an old Mac. It's probably like a clone or something like that. But yeah, that was that, and there's the Goosebumps poster and the books are in the background. Yeah, that was fun to do. This was one of my favorite ones to do. So
yeah, I love that touch in the back. It's like it's coming out of like a Goosebumps fan's computer.
But they did that with the TV series too. Like in the actual Goosebumps show, you'll notice in the background of most kids' bedrooms, there's like a stack of Goosebumps books on the shelf. So cool. I love that you kept the trend going, even with the book covers. Like cool. It was always like they were Goosebumps fans within the Goosebumps universe.
It's a paradox.
I don't know, like it was. Right. Pretty much
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, right.
It's great though. We love it.
I gotta ask, what was like the process for doing all these arts for the cover arts?
Okay. The way I remember it was a long time ago. The way I remember it, this is way back. The internet had just gotten started. I think, what was it? When was this one first went on? Was it 96? No. Was it before that?
The first one came out. The first one that you did was January 1998.
98. Okay, so yeah, so I was living up in San Francisco at the time. My wife and I moved to San Francisco in 95, I think, the end of 95. And up until that point, I was doing, like I was saying, I was doing trading cards for Fleer and Marvel. And so I think that's where a lot of this real foreshortening kind of came out, like this really kind of, hand in front of your face was a lot of these. And I'm looking at them like, oh, I did that a lot. And I don't remember, it wasn't conscious. I was just in that kind of mode then. But the process back then was, I believe they would send me my agent my agent handled all my work. So he would talk to the client. He would talk to the people at Scholastic. So they were art directors usually. And they would say, they would send him a little brief of the book cover, what they wanted. It usually wasn't about what the book was about, but they would say, like on this one, it was like a furry creature coming up an escalator in a department store at night. And that's basically all they gave me. And it was kind of like, do whatever you want, which was kind of cool. Up to that point, it was, I used to have all these rules, but they were kind of like, just do whatever you want. The colors, it didn't matter. And it was a blast. I mean, it was fun to just be able to do something. And very, very rarely did they make any alterations to anything. It was kind of like, oh, this is great. We'll run with it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. As an artist, that's your favorite thing in the world when they don't make changes on anything.
Exactly.
But so that it was basically, I would get faxes or a package through FedEx in the mail. And it would just be a one-page kind of description of what they wanted for the artwork. I wish I had better stories. I wish I could say, oh yeah, they gave me the book and it was the synopsis and I got to read it. Or, it was basically literally just a page of paper that said, this is what we want. So,
yeah.
No, that's actually the same thing that Tim Jacobus said too. Even for him, he was like, I was given like 2 sentences to describe what I needed to make. He's like, and then I had like a ridiculous turnaround time that I had to get. And that was at the time he was painting everything and then had to ship it to Scholastic. So,
wow.
I think that was one of the reasons why I ended up getting the job, was because I had been doing everything digitally. And I guess we were emailing stuff like low-res files to the client and they could approve it or whatever. And then they could make changes easily if they needed to, because I didn't have to repaint anything. That was a big deal. And then you guys don't remember, but there were these things called zip disks, which were like mini hard drives that you could remove. And I would ship those. We did FedEx all the time. I mean, I knew the FedEx guy, so that's kind of the way I worked with everything. Now we just email everything. It's just amazing how quick everything is now. But back then it was a lot of mail and a lot of FedEx. So. And a fax. Anybody know what a fax machine is?
Yeah, no, I'm older than I look. I was born in 85, no, you so don't. I remember all this.
Nick, you don't even look. You don't look your age, man.
You don't look a day over 68.
I appreciate that.
Oh man, I used to have a joke. My dad and I used to we used to have this thing. Well, not just me, my siblings. Like we'd be watching some like Elvis movie or something from like the 50s, and we'd go, "Oh, Dad, you were probably about 40 there, right?" Like, and he'd be like, "Excuse me?" So, oh yeah, no, I totally get that, Nick.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, so we did.
Totally, it's amazing how quickly technology has changed since then. Because when we talked about even the computer that's on the cover it came from the internet. It's like.
Yeah,
I remember those in school.
Yeah,
so like,
oh, 100%. Like one of my favorites was because I have always been a fan of sharks. I love sharks. Anything movies to do with sharks. So Ship the Ghouls was definitely one of my one of my favorites as a kid. Like I remember that was one that I used to I had this notorious thing where I used to just stare at Goosebumps book covers. I don't know why. And that was one of the few that I used to just stare at for a very long time. And I love sharks. So I was always fascinated by the cover. And I was like, maybe I should actually read it now.
Well, the thing that got me was that there's like, I'm assuming that's blood, like coming out of the shark's mouth.
Yeah.
And that's
blood
like,
through the water.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. They were pretty open about it. And I even, when I looked at some of these later, I'm like, God, that is kind of scary. They were pretty much kind of said, do whatever you want. So, that's what I did. Well, this one was modeled after my dog at the time. The one, the pug, flying through the air. And now I look at it, I'm like, that's terrifying. a poor dog flipping. I'm like, what's going to happen to the dog?
Oh no!
But they were pretty. Oh man! And I hope no one had nightmares because of that. That's terrible.
Oh, but jeez.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the most.
See, hopefully somebody did. That's the whole point of Goosebumps.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
That's the idea, right?
It's like, yeah, you could say you did your job, but at what cost?
This is what we love. We love hearing the story behind the book covers, you know, like, and that's why we love having you guys on, because it's like for instance, we never would have known that was modeled after your dog. You know what I mean? Like, it's just great hearing these stories.
One of the most goofy yet honestly kind of terrifying covers for me is this one for Your Plant Food.
Yeah. That is the most, that's the goofy, terrifying one for sure. Mm-hmm. That one, and I don't, so back then, if you guys don't know it, but we, as an illustrator, I was always looking for reference to draw from, not just pull it right out of my head. And there wasn't an internet, so there wasn't, you couldn't Google search for images like I do now. So I had like magazines and file folders full of like references, and some of this stuff, that's probably some kid somewhere that was on a magazine screaming, poor kid, that I used as reference for that. And then some of them, like this one was scary too. I don't know where I came up with that face, but that's like, that scares the crap out of me. I'm like, but I guess all I can think of is I remember them saying, just make it as scary as you want. And I was like, oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Well, that was kind of the trend towards the end, because even the Series 2000 books, they went, darker and edgier with the covers, and so that kind of transcended into the later half of the Give Yourself Goosebumps books too. Well, so I think that's really cool, and I love that book cover. Like it's a great one.
It's funny because
I don't know. This is
the second time in the series where there is a cover with an evil clock on it with a face. And honestly, this one is honestly creepier just because of like the human eyes and like it. I don't know. There's just something about it. This one,
like an evil Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, exactly. It's also just about the big bushy eyebrows too.
That's the vibe.
One thing I just noticed looking at this was the cover for Your Plant Food is right there on the little picture frame right there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah,
I didn't even notice that.
I was
Goosebumps within Goosebumps.
And I was like, wait a minute.
That's wild.
Goosebumps is just like a multiverse or something. Like, that's the way I'm looking at it now. The multiverse.
That's cool.
No,
that's great. I really like the Easter egg. Like, I didn't even catch that. So
I know.
Yeah, I didn't either.
One that I did and I don't have it with me, and I thought I saved all of them. Of course, I'm sure they're around here somewhere. But there was a one with and you guys know the titles, so I don't remember the titles. But it was a woman with it was a lady turning into a cat, and she was kind of had her mouth open, and she had this kind of a
Night of a Thousand Claws. Night of a Thousand Claws.
Is that it?
Yep.
So, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that was actually my wife posing as that cat, and our cat at the time was a calico, so it's a calico cat. And I think I took back in the day a Polaroid picture of my wife kind of like doing that pose, and then when I painted it was her, so with as her and our cat combined, so that's where that one
that's really cool.
That's so great.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love that.
I love it. I don't have that one for some reason or another.
I love when you use like all the references to things, I love hearing all these stories. They're so great. But so now we know that was your wife doing this.
Yeah, back in the day.
Now I got
did she also
the dog
pose
and
for the werewolf?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Did she also pose for the werewolf?
I don't know. I think my brother posed for the one where he's looking over his shoulder, reading by the campfire. I think maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to.
Yeah, Isaiah's got it right there.
So this one,
is that the one?
Campfire.
Oh right. Maybe so. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that looks like my brother. We're twins, so he kind of sort of looks like me, but that was probably the beginnings of it.
Yeah.
Just to get the proportions sort of right. So yeah.
Now I gotta say, one that always looked the most realistic to me was this one, Snakebite Canyon.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Good one.
That was about 1,000 little scales. That's when I knew I was testing myself. I was like, oh god, I got to do scales, and I have that one too. Yeah, all the scales. That's back in the day when I didn't mind doing tedious things. Now I'm like, I avoid it like the plague. Funny. As an artist, you get lazier when you get older.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Nothing wrong with that, when you put in the time.
One of my other favorites, just because I love like movie theater sort of things, so I really love Invaders from the Big Screen with the King Kong.
What is it about that movie I find that book most commonly for some reason, like from the Give Yourself Black Spines, like every time like I find a stack of Goosebumps books somewhere in the wild, there's always like, and if there's the Give Yourself Goosebumps, I always find that one. I don't know what it is. Like even just recently I picked up another copy and I'm like, something about like Australia and animals, like I'm always finding like
the Australian comic books. It took me only like 14 years to find this book. You could just find them in a big pile anywhere.
Oh my god.
We got all the dangerous animals and things, and Nick and I always have this funny thing because like there's a lot of merchandise with Cuddles the hamster in Australia, and I'm like, because it looks like a Tasmanian devil, something like weird rodent creature, and we got so much of that in Australia, so they probably thought, oh, put that creepy looking Tasmanian devil hamster on everything because
we hamster on there fits our Australian lifestyle.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up. I don't think I've ever seen that. That's interesting.
Really quick, I want to ask, because we were talking earlier about like the process. Since these books were coming out like every month, was there ever like time crunch when it came to like making them?
It always seemed like there was, and I can't imagine, but I guess I probably did them within a week turnaround, and that sounds like. Now it sounds like too much time, because when I was researching this after you guys asked me about coming on here, I called my agent, who I'm still working with today, and I said, "How did this all come about?" And he said he kind of reminded me of what happened, and they were looking for somebody, like I said, to do digital art, and he was a friend of mine, and she said, "Well, I know this guy who's been doing some Marvel cards for us. He'd be great for this." And my agent said that he called me on a Thursday, and he said, "Is this something you're interested in?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." And he said, "Well, I kind of need a sample." And I said, "Sure, no problem." And he said that on Monday I gave him 2 complete samples and of books. I don't even know what they were, but he took them into the art director, and they loved them, and that's how I got the job. So I used to work really fast back then. So I would imagine it probably maybe 3 or 4 days, I think. Because I remember doing sketches. I would do pencil sketches, and then I would either fax them. I don't think it was email. It's probably fax back in the day. And then I'd get approval from whatever they wanted. And then once the pencil sketch was done, I'd start working on the colors. So it probably took about a week. But yeah, I seem to remember them taking like, oh, we need this in 4 days, kind of a thing. So there were times where there was crunching like that, for sure.
Because now
you end up keeping the sketches after you did that, or
man,
they kind of lost time?
I have none of that, and I'm kicking myself because I wish, because we moved, let's see, from San Francisco to LA, from LA to Redondo, from Redondo to here, so like 3 times, and I've been hauling these boxes of my old work around, and I have a feeling that at one point all that stuff just disappeared and got thrown away, which is a drag, because it would be really cool to see all that stuff again. But I did. I was in the garage the other day, and I found a box of some CDs. You guys know what CDs are. I'm just kidding. But
as long as you didn't say 8-track, then you might lose these 2.
Right, for sure. So I found a box of some CDs, and some of them said, Give Yourself Goosebumps on them. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through them, and if I can even, I'm assuming I can open some of the files. And if I find any of the sketches or whatever, I'll send them over to you guys so you can see what they look like in sketch form before they went into final form.
That'd be awesome. No, that'd be really cool.
I'll go back through and see if I can find any information I can give you guys. I'll send over to you for sure.
Oh,
awesome!
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Highly appreciate.
Well, that's awesome.
Scholastic, at least. send you? Did Scholastic at least send you the books as they were coming out?
No, I didn't buy them.
Man, they were scamming you.
I have a receipt in here. One of these books has a receipt in it, and I don't know. Yeah, no, I had to buy them, unfortunately. And some of the publishers used to send. They were like the cover flat, and I think they called them flats. Mm-hmm. And I used to get them from a lot of different publishers, but never from Scholastic. Like I was telling you, what did I do? Replica and some of the other books like that. They would send me flats, but they'd send me like 30 of them. And I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? Because it just stacks up after a while. But I had no idea at the time. I mean, I knew Goosebumps was big back then, but the other stuff, I had no idea how big it was going to be or how it would have a fan following like you guys loved them so much. And at the time, it was just kind of like a job, but I did love the Goosebumps. I mean, it was like I knew exactly what it was when I was offered the job. I was like, heck yeah, I want to do that. So that's cool.
Well, yeah, because 98 by that time.
One thing that we do like to ask our guests, like if they knew what Goosebumps was before they ended up getting the job, whether they're actors or whatever, because it's interesting because most of them didn't. So I remember even when the show was big.
Yeah, right. Wow. Yeah, I remember. I knew the line. I didn't know "Give Yourself Goosebumps." I'd never heard of that. And he was like, I remember talking to my agent Peter, and I said, "So is this the Goosebumps?" And he's like, "They're called Give Yourself Goosebumps." I'm like, "What is that?" And I never understood the choose your own ending thing. That's what a cool idea that was. I was like, "Wow, that is really ripping." I was like, "Wow, really cool to be able to read and then choose your own adventure." That was really neat. And so I didn't know that line at the time. But I had heard of the Goosebumps stuff. And I was, like I said, I was probably in my 30s when I was doing these.
Funny thing is that
7 now.
Whenever sometimes when I talk to someone about like Goosebumps, they'll be like, "Oh, I remember those," but they won't really remember like any specific titles. But I swear, most of them have been like, I really like those Choose Your Own Adventure ones. It's like for some reason those were more like. I don't know. I guess those just got into the hands of more people back then. So
they're more collectible. That's one thing that you should know. Actually, is that these have become some of these Black Spine books, particularly some of the special editions, have become some of the most desirable, collectible, most expensive Goosebumps books to collect now. Even Isaiah still doesn't have a full set, and Nick's still missing a few. Like
so close to a full set.
I'm still missing a few. But see, this is one of my favorite covers. Is Trigger Trapped, but this one is roughly like somewhere in the $100 to $120 range.
Holy smokes!
Depending on condition, it could be a little less, I guess, but that's about the average.
Yeah.
My story with my copy was that I found it in a Facebook listing with like 3 other random books for $5, and it was like I drove 40 minutes from my house just so I could get this and say I had it. Bought it for $5. So proud of myself.
You got lucky, man. That's luck, cool. Man. Like that's just pure luck. Like honestly, but sometimes like people will be just selling a bulk of Goosebumps books and they're all just one price, and they don't look up what some of them are individually valued at, and some of them are worth just a fortune. It's crazy, and particularly the black,
especially those later ones like Return to Terror Tower and stuff.
That's expensive, man.
Now I gotta ask,
condition one's expensive.
What is that supposed to, is that like a orangutan man?
I don't know, man. It's like a skull.
Skull monkey, I don't even know what. Skull monkey.
I guess so. Maybe it was like, I don't know. I can't remember. But that's bizarre. This one, I have this one. This is one of the original ones that I have. So this is when you guys were talking about Return to Terror Tower.
Yep.
So, personal favorite.
This is another one.
Go ahead.
No, this is another one that's actually pretty hard to find. In fact, actually, my copy I had to buy for $60.
Oh, wow.
But this is one of my favorite covers just because I love the original Terror Tower that Tim did. And I love just like the executioner coming down the stairs. And I mean, this is pretty close to like Tim's design for that. I think the hood is just a little more black, but I always just love this one and the moon in the background. Oh no, that's not the moon, that's the axe.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like the moon.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely the you could see the comic book stuff coming through in that one for sure. Sure.
Now this one, it had a very menacing look to it, which was really great for the Executioner.
And he's buff.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, he's jacked.
There's an interesting story behind this, and I wish I could find the mag. There's a magazine that did an article on me about doing these covers, and you guys are going to kill me because I can't remember what it's called, but I'm going to look for it. And this was in one of their magazines that they did, and it was like a how-to. So it was the sketch, and she had the editor of the magazine at the time interviewed me, and then she had me send her in progress kind of files. And I cannot find it, but I'm going to look. That's another thing I'm going to look for. And if I find it for you guys, I'll send it to you for sure. But it was a breakdown of the steps of how I was painting these at the time. So I will look for that. But it was this actual cover was in that book.
No,
in
that's
that
one
magazine.
of my favorites.
No, it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love when you got to do a lot of sequels. Yeah,
What's that?
definitely. You got to do like a lot of the you got to bring back a lot of the original books like as sequels almost. So like the body. Yep, there it is. I didn't even have to say it. You read my mind.
One.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's another bizarre one. I was like, crap. And that one, I assume they sent me the originals. They must have. I don't know what the original looks like, but it must have been something
it's similar. Yeah.
So this is
I'm
the
sure,
original.
I'm sure Isaiah has it within reach.
This is the original Series 2000. So basically,
oh, that's cool.
It's pretty similar
They must have
overall.
sent me
This one looks a little more. You can kind of see it's a little more like muscular. It looks a little more like Spaceman-ish. Where this one just looks like a clear like alien creature.
I like that though.
But
that's
the face,
cool.
the face is pretty close to the Tim Jacobus.
Pretty much the same. Yeah.
They must have they must have showed them to me. I wish I could remember. I feel bad that I can't remember everything about it.
But this was how this book, the second one ended, is that there's the discovery of a blue body squeezer, and then that's what appears on the cover of this one. So it's very much like a sequel,
cool.
Which is pretty cool.
It turned blue. It's like Monster Blood. It's like Monster Blood. It went from green to blue. Like what? Even the body squeezers went from green to blue. I don't know what was with Stein and doing that, but
now this was my most recent addition to the collection, and this was always just one I just loved, and it's Elevator to Nowhere.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, yeah. That's actually very iconic. That's very iconic. That one.
It's so like you don't know like what is he like trying to escape the elevator? Is he trying to like get in? It's really odd and eerie for some reason, but I love it. I
think for that one, they actually said he's trying to get out of the elevator, and for some reason or other, that looks a lot like Doc from Back to the Future. I don't know why. I don't know if that was in my mind at the time, and I was kind of trying to make his eyes bug out of his head. And then he's got these 4 red hands that are it's just like, that's crazy town.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that... I think he's supposed to be getting out, like he's stuck in the elevator, like the doors came crashing down or something like that.
Yeah, it's scary. It's
that's what I got from it, because it looks like above his head is the outside of the elevator where you can see the floor levels.
Yeah. No, this was one of my
funny story. That was the first one I found actually when I was a kid, because like I grew up in the early 2000s. Like Nick got to grow up during the hype of all the Goosebumps. I kind of caught the tail end, and I remember that was the first Black Spine Choose Your Own Adventure that I actually found. And funny story, I remember like it was at the book fest, and I remember I went to buy it, and the lady at the counter was like, "You look too young. You shouldn't be reading this." But she was like, really like, "You shouldn't be reading this. You're too young for that." And I was like, "It's my money. I will spend on it what I want," which is Goosebumps. And she was like trying to tell me like, "No, you shouldn't be reading this." Like, all right, whatever, lady. Like, do you know what I mean? And maybe especially that cover, because it was kind of like, you know, it looks like he's getting squished and eyes popping out. So she probably looked at it as like, it's evil. You shouldn't be. I'm like, you gotta screw your mind up, kid. Yeah. I remember that.
I shall be saved.
Dashing the holy water on you. Be gone, be
Yeah,
gone.
I know. It's like, it felt like that, at the time, and I would have only been, because this would have been 2001. So at that point with Goosebumps, it was very much like the most recent books that were available at the Scholastic Book Fairs were the Choose Your Own Adventures Series 2000s. Like that was what, I grew up at a time when I could get these books like cheap and the craze was kind of dying. And I think that's how I got lucky to get so many of them. And everyone's like, how did you get them all? I'm like, well, I was buying them when not many people really wanted them, I guess. So
yeah,
it's
just incredible. Like
resurgence probably in the last 5 years, maybe.
Well, like just how things
Goosebumps
like
stuff. And I think it's just because it's really reached that nostalgic point for people. We had the 30th anniversary of the book starting not too long ago, and next year is the 30th anniversary for the show. Then Disney Plus started doing their show. So, I mean, there's just been a kind of a resurgence, because they're still making books. They're still doing board games and products and merch and everything. And it's quite incredible that's stood the, test of time, given the fact that Harry Potter almost killed it. So
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Harry Potter, man.
Here we have the
There was
precursor.
a book that I think they had you do the art for, but wasn't released.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
I get questions about that a lot. And it was the Penguin one, I think. Wasn't that the one?
Yeah.
And you guys,
the art's
I guess
out
you
there.
can find I'm sorry?
Yeah, the photo of the penguin art's out there, so it's kind of like, was this a book that was not supposed to be released?
I don't know what happened. I don't know. I was asking my agent too. I was like, "How did this all end?" And he couldn't really remember, but they did send me the art request for it, and I did it. And that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
And it was like these angry emperor penguins. I do remember that, and I was like, "Wow, that seems really kind of bizarre." Even for what we've been doing up to that point. And so that's. I wish I knew what the reason was. And I like I said, I'm going to look for that CD, and if I can find it, I'll get you guys some of the artwork, and maybe there's some sort of. In that file, I can find some sort of reason why they didn't finish it, but I don't remember.
Well, the biggest theory of them all is that it was just that series was just a casualty of some of the legal troubles that were going on at the time. We won't get into a whole discussion about it, but there was essentially in the late 90s, like just before the 2000s hit, there was a legal dispute between Parachute Press, Scholastic, and R.L. Stine. Basically, the result came that every series just kind of halted because Stein didn't renew his contract, so it just kind of stopped everything. And there was all those planned books that were unreleased, and that's one that gets talked about a lot. Was the 43rd Give Yourself Goosebumps with the Penguins? Which stings. We don't even know what the name of it was going to be.
Yeah. Maybe for the 30th anniversary of the Choose Your Own Adventure books, which, well, for when you started doing them in '98, they will release it.
Oh, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be neat.
Yeah,
they just
30 years.
I know I'm pretty sure I got paid for it, so they own it, so they can do whatever they want to with it.
Yeah,
I promise you guys, I'll look for any information I can find about that. But I don't remember what it was called either. I wish I did. But maybe I can find something. If I can, I'll let you know for sure.
Somebody called it Angry Feet.
Angry Feet?
Angry Feet, yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Wow. Yeah. Oh, God. What? Everyone think of a title. Nick, what would you call it?
Oh, man, on the spot. I don't know. Angry Feet's pretty good.
Angry Feet is pretty
good.
Yeah, it was so revolutionary, it predicted the movie 6 years prior.
Oh my God!
Oh, and here we have another precursor to Monster House. This is I call this the Monster House one.
Yeah,
I love this.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's a great cover. That's one of my favorites of yours, actually. Yeah, Craig, that's a great one. I used to always think about that actually when I looked at that book. Did that predict Monster House by any chance, like the movie? Like I always,
wild. Yeah. I don't remember where this stuff came from. I just was drawing stuff that scared me. So I guess, but yeah, it does kind of look like the Monster House movie, doesn't it? Kind of a thing.
Yeah, like with the like boards for teeth and the mouth and the eyes are like the windows. It's very much like the movie. I
was reading a lot of Stephen King back then. There was it the Dark Tower series? There's at one point, I don't know if you guys know Stephen King, but there was one scene where the house actually comes alive and tries to eat the kid or something like that. And maybe that's what was sticking in my mind at the time, like boards for teeth and things like that.
Mm-hmm. It's a really cool design. I mean, just the idea of a living house is like, I mean, that's why the movie worked. It's a great concept for a movie. But that's a really good piece.
I have nightmares still about houses. I don't know why. It's one of these things. It's like that not nightmares, but I'll have dreams where I'm in a haunted house of some kind. And I'm not really big into ghosts or anything, but for some reason it always comes up into my dreams somehow or another.
Yeah, they can.
Maybe that's where that came from.
Put in the right context, ghosts can be scary. It's just, especially when it gets to like zombie territory where it's done all the time, then it starts to be that's how it was when like those Paranormal Activity movies were coming out. It was like yawn, like we got to like the 6th and 7th one. It was like, okay, it's more of the same. Good, got it.
Cashing in.
I love this one. It's Only a Nightmare.
Oh yeah. Wow.
It is checkerboard.
Ironically enough, as that book comes up as we're talking about Craig's nightmares.
Exactly, you're right.
That's what he woke up to.
It's just something about these covers, because like I remember seeing these ones a lot more than like the original 62 at the time, especially because it was like that early 2000s, and these were just so recent. Like even if I went to like an Angus and Robertson, which was like our major bookstore here, you go to the Goosebumps section and they would have pretty much just Series 2000 and the Choose Your Own Adventure. They might have like 2 or 3 of the original 62, but already at that point you had to go to like secondhand bookstores and like markets and things to find the original 62 books, because we were already into the Series 2000s. We were well and truly into the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And these ones just stick out to me so much because that was the most recent thing out while I was, reading Goosebumps, buying the books. Like they were everywhere at this point, and I just think, man, if I knew what I knew back then, like I would have just bought them all. Like just bought like multiple. I do buy multiple copies, but I would have bought multiple copies back then because, man, like they are so collectible, some of them now. And half the time when people message me, they go like, "Do you have book number 37? Do you have book number 40? Like a spare copy?" And I'm just like, "I'm sorry, I don't." And even if I did, it would go to my Goosebumps Crew bros first.
Now this is a great one. I love this green fur.
Oh yeah.
I like that the fur is not on every single part of his body. It's like very spotty.
Yeah, it's like he's got mange or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Biting the magic stick and thirds.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I see these now and I'm like, what in the world was I thinking of? And I hope that it was somebody that gave me some sort of direction, but who knows, man? I don't know.
This one is awesome.
That was a good one.
Oh, the cake one. That was really gross.
Like all the bugs and the rat and the whole, like, instead of like the candles are just ablaze.
It's on fire.
It's like a fire.
I love that one. Got the little spiders, and it's got like a little rodent on it too. What even is that? It's a mouse, right?
It's a rat.
Yeah.
Rat mouse thing. Yeah, like see that.
I mean, this puts the.
That'd be another one that was probably commonly found in Australia.
There's like little flies in there too. It's like,
yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Oh man, you know what? Like that was one of the books that. Oh, okay, this is pretty naughty, but that was one of the books that I borrowed from the library, and I failed to return. So when they sent that little fine in the mail, I was like, yeah, I'll just pay for that.
How many books did you take from the library and never return?
This is not disclose that information at this time.
There was. I feel like they're gonna knock on my door, but there was Ghost in the Mirror, was one of them, and yeah, scary. Yeah, that one as well with the birthday cake. I'm pretty sure those were the only two. But I remember I was like young, and I remember I remember borrowing them, and I couldn't find. Like, these were certain ones I just couldn't find, and I remember, like, I'll just borrow it. Eventually, they're going to ask me to pay for it. And I was just like, yeah, it was bad. I was a little kid, man. I was like 7. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, how about 7 years in the slammer? Boom. That's me.
What if they did come knocking on my door and being like, all these years later,
your local library is watching this now. It was him.
They'll be like, that son of a bitch.
Going back to old footage of when I like borrowed the books out. Oh, God.
So it makes me think, like, I don't know if anybody here watched Married with Children. Like, I watch it almost on the regular, but there was an episode Al didn't return the little engine that could to the library, and he owed like $2,000 to the library, and it's still working there.
Oh, jeez.
Dead by now.
The little engine that could.
That's great.
Yeah, that's gonna be you, Bjorn. You're gonna go back to that library. It's the same library.
I paid the fine. My dad paid the fine. He was like, "What's this?" I remember the day we got it in the mail, and he was like, "What's this book that you owe money for?" Like, and I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, I borrowed it. I don't know what happened. I lost it. I couldn't find it. I think I left it somewhere at school." And he's like, "Oh, I have to pay $15 now." Like, and, oh man, I still remember that. You know, like, he was so mad. And $15 dues, and I was kind of just like, "I'm so sorry, Dad." And then I kind of went back to my room, and was like, "That's the bad."
Yeah, that was the day you grew your little devil horns, like in the cartoon.
I was the Tasmanian devil.
No. Oh, here's another goofy one. Juggling clown, juggling skulls.
Juggling the skulls. Oh my God.
I love that.
That's wild.
Man, I love that. That's the special edition one too.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, the special edition ones. I really did they tell you to do anything different with those compared to the other ones you'd already done?
Not that I recall. I don't even think they called them special editions back then, or maybe I think they would have just told me the name. And I probably didn't say anything about doing something special, but not that I recall. No.
Many of these weren't that different. Some of them were like just about the same. I know one of them had like there was like twice as many endings, I think. So you'd have like That's instead of one prompt, you'd have like 2 on each page. I don't remember which one it is. I gotta find it now. But it was like that was at least where I saw it was kind of where like the special stuff ended, because it was just kind of the same. I'm wondering if
I have this. This is one of my favorite ones too. This one.
Oh yeah, the dinosaur. I love that dinosaur.
Yeah, that was one.
That was I really enjoyed that one. That was kind of fun to be able to do the bones and all. Like I said, these days I would go, "Oh, can I do this somehow or another without using bones?" But back then it was a lot of fun. I really got a kick out of it.
Yeah. Oh, this was the one.
I remember that book. I actually won at a school thing. There was I can't remember what it was, but there was a competition at the Scholastic Book Fair at my school, and it was I'm trying to remember. I think it was I think it might have been an Easter egg hunt or something. And I remember they hid all the eggs, and they said if you find, there was one specific one. God, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was an Easter egg hunt. And they ended up giving us all like prizes, and we got to pick kind of like what book we wanted. And I was like, Goosebumps! So they gave me that book, that exact book, and I remember getting it from and it felt great because I won it, you know. So it was it was a good
cool.
So this
I didn't have to steal that one.
This one was interesting.
No, I didn't have to.
Because
I borrowed it, failed to return it, and paid the fine.
This one is interesting actually because not only is it the one that has like twice as many choices on a book, so this one has 4 instead of the normal 2. Wow. But it actually says there's only one good ending. All the other endings are bad. There's only one good ending. So it's you gotta really pick the good decisions if you want the good ending. So
you just do what every other kid did, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to choose that ending," and you go back.
right.
Can I give it another try?
That's cool.
Was there any books that kind of like, so like obviously you're on crunch time. Was there any that you kind of just sat there, looked at the synopsis or the 2 sentences they gave you and just went, how am I meant to do this? Like what was there any that kind of,
I think the werewolf one was, I remember trying to figure out how in the world am I going to show, because they wanted 3 werewolves, the one that's on your screen right now, and they wanted to show, and I'm like, and they wanted somebody up a tree, and I'm like, how in the world am I going to do that? That was one that I thought that was kind of like, I'm not sure how to do the perspective on this. So it's kind of weird because he's jumping up and there's 2 other ones behind him, and there's a lot in there and it's kind of dark. So that one I remember was being like, I'm not sure how to do this one. And then the boy with you guys, I'm sorry, I don't know the titles, but the one that the kid's turning into the tree, that one was a weird one too, because I was like, I don't know how in the world I'm going to do that. But those kind of stand out to me as being, that one that stand out to me as being like a little bit hard, or not harder, but just a little bit more interesting to think about. This one also was is the guy with the Invaders from the Big Screen. That one was, they said they wanted a crowd, and when you're an illustrator and you're on a crunch and they say a crowd, you kind of go, oh God, no. So I had to put people in, and I tried to make them as loose as possible. Now that I'm looking at it, they're pretty loose. And not be distracting from the main thing that you want people to see. So that one was, I remember going, oh no, I got to put people in there, and lots of people. So, those are the things that stood out to me as being more difficult, I think, than the others.
Yeah.
Are there any
definitely.
that you would like, that you wish you could redo? Like, are there any that you maybe weren't as proud of?
Oh, yeah. The one with the guy coming out of the elevator was kind of weird. I kind of wish I could do a better job of that. And then, let's see. I don't know. I really enjoyed all of them, actually, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think about the ones that I would like to take a better stab at. No, I think that one was the one that was a little bit odd. I remember thinking at the time he was almost too creepy, and then I wish I'd had more time to do a better job on that. But,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
On
an
Doc
interesting one.
Brown. Doc Brown.
Yeah, Doc Brown, exactly.
Doc Brown. Make it a little less Doc Brown.
Yeah, exactly. That was definitely one that I wouldn't mind taking another stab at. I would actually love it if they asked me to do more of these at some point in time.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
That's kind of like something we've talked about before. Like, I really wish that they would go back to the artists who did the books before, because they're doing like re-releases of some books right now from days past, and I think it's a missed opportunity to not reach out to the artist. Hey, we want you to do this book cover again, but just do it differently. Like,
Yeah, it'd be fun to do.
I mean, it'd be neat just to have those new, unique covers for those books.
Yeah, and my style has changed a lot. So, but I'm sure I could do it in the same kind of genre, but hopefully they'd be drawn better now, because I'm a little bit better as an artist than I was back then. But yeah, so it would be. I'd love it, actually. I'd really, really get a kick out of it.
This was another one of the first
very cool
of these Black Spine ones that I got, was Zombie School.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's one that you guys asked me if I could redo that. That's kind of one that I wasn't super crazy about how it came out. It's a little bit
dead.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, I would think I would do it differently. I remember struggling with trying to remember because at the time I didn't have reference for a cafeteria at school. And I'm like, I don't remember what it looks like. So I remember just really trying to, because I couldn't go to a high school. I should have, or grade school, and kind of go to their cafeteria. But that's what I remember from when I was in grade school, of the metal kind of track where you put your tray down, and they always served you horrible food. So, that one would be fun to redo, to do a better job, a little bit more add some more detail, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like, especially when you do zombies, like, they definitely did for, like, I feel like every zombie book in the Goosebumps series, like, really went for the gore. I don't know if you ever saw Tim's Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls. Let me pull it out really quick. But this one is probably one of the most intense Goosebumps covers ever.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's that's cool though.
You got like
I like it.
Flesh coming off like the bones you can see there, and then this guy's got his eye hanging out. It's like,
oh my gosh.
It is wow for Goosebumps.
Yeah, I think at that time he said that when they started 2000, they told him they wanted to do a little more dark and edgy, so they gave him a little more leeway, and I think that bled over into the Give Yourself, because you even said like they told you pretty much just go nuts, which is awesome. And I think that really showed in a lot of those later covers. I mean, the original ones that were done before are iconic for obvious reasons, but it's those later ones that really got that dark, edgy, like, color and,
to the extreme.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids were getting older, like, you know, the Goosebumps fan base. So they were trying to, I think, you know, with the books as well, like, even some of the Series 2000 books, I remember, like, being very dark, you know, just reading them. And, I think Tim mentioned about how, like, as the kids were getting older and growing up, he was kind of trying to contrast that with the books, you know, for the kids getting older. But I think by that point, Harry Potter was already taking over, and it was like, it was all about a boy wizard at that point. But not for us.
Good.
I mean, we technically grew up in the era of Harry Potter, but, you know, I had older brothers and sisters and cousins, and they all showed me Goosebumps, and I was like, but, you know, at the same time, you know, you couldn't really avoid it because it was all on the big screen and it was so big. But Isaiah's like, no.
I don't know. I found a way to avoid it. There's only 2 covers.
Being in your mom's basement, you nerd.
Yeah. There's only 2 covers left in my collection. There's before I get to those ones, there is one other special edition called Weekend at Poison Lake. And it has, like, the big, like, frog, dart frog, like, man coming out. Like, it's like a big blue creature. Let me pull up the art really quick.
I got the book in the room. It's one of the rarer books, too. The final of the... Yeah, so I've been lucky to find that 3 in the wild, but...
There you go. So it's like
I remember that now. Yeah.
So it's like a big...
Yeah, there's definitely a little alien kind of thing going on there from the xenomorph from Alien. Somehow or another made its way into that.
The webbed hands, like, and all that stuff, and it's coming out of that nasty poison liquid water. I was like, there's nasty water there. They better get to cleaning that.
So at the time, and as we've talked about some Easter eggs with some of your art, was there ever anything that, like, you always try to put into your art, kind of like a hidden detail for anybody, or was it just kind of on a whim when you did those?
Not really. I think what you're saying is probably more like it. It was just like, I'll put something on the back wall. And I remember with the Into the Twister of Terror, putting stuff in the background flying around, and I'm trying to see if there's anything in there that at the time I would have thought was pretty funny to put in there. But I'm looking. There's a basketball goal. Oh yeah, there are some things that are. There's a heart necklace from some reason or another in the background. You can look. There's little stuff flying around in there. There's specific things at the time for some reason or another.
Yeah, I like the doghouse. It has it says like Fido on it or something like that.
Oh yeah, and then there's a red slipper flying around in there too somewhere. Yeah,
there's a lot of Wizard of Oz things in there. There's a broom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a Kansas thing. Yeah, so that was the extent. Now if I was to do these again, I would just load them up with little bitty things that you guys could find or that people would look for. But yeah,
that's one of the the great things about some of these covers, and you look at them, and it's things like that you find, and it's like, okay, well, why was that put in there? Was there a specific reason this artist put that in there? You know, it's one of the fun things to do with some of the art and the cover that we get.
Well, I was trying to hide my signature in there some weird place. Usually, well, at the beginning, I was doing it like that. I was like putting it on the sides of, like in this one, which I think this was the first one that I did. Shop to You, Drop Dead.
Yeah. Right.
My signature is like kind of on the side. Yeah, it's down on the side, like way kind of buried back there.
It's almost like it's etched into like the metal.
Yeah, exactly. And then this one, it was in the bell of Checkout at the Dead End Hotel. Just like stuck down in there. And then it looks like I just started going straight and right now. But this one has the most little things in there. I think we were talking about. It's got the stack of the books back here, and then the poster, stuff like that.
First winning contest.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. One of my good friends. Yeah, one of my good friends' favorite book covers of all time is literally that one. And yeah, he has about, I think, 6 or I can't even remember what he said now. He has a few copies of it. But no, it's one of his absolute favorite ones. And I said to him, you should get it blown up and put it in a frame on a wall or something. And he was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great one.
Do you sell prints or anything of your artwork? I mean, I remember looking a long time ago, but it doesn't mean it hasn't changed.
I used to sell. I did some Clive Cussler books a while back, and I don't know if you guys know who he is, but I did.
Clive Cussler.
Yeah, I probably did about 10 of those covers, and I was selling prints at the time, but that's back when printers were relatively good, and now it seems like printers these days are just terrible. And I'd have to look for, like I said, I'm going to have to look for those original files because I don't have anything on any hard drive, so I'll have to pull up the good old CDs and see if I can pull up some of that stuff. But if I can find anything, I'll send you guys the high res images of everything. So.
Oh, it'd be so great. Cool. That'd be amazing. Cool.
Another one I really like is Curse of the Cave Creatures. I love this bear coming out of the
bear.
Like a ghost bear almost.
Yeah, I think I remember that was like cave paintings, and they wanted the cave painting kind of coming alive to a bear. So.
And this one, your signature is right down there. It's almost like it's etched into the It's almost like it's drawn with the cave drawings. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that one was. I remember that one being weird because at the time I didn't have very much references of a bear's arms right there, and they don't stick out, like they're kind of short and stubby. Mm-hmm. And I remember drawing it, going, it looks a little odd, but it's like I guess that's the way they look. So I did the best I could.
You do what you can. But, it's one of my favorites personally. And then I got this one. One Night in Pain House, another dog.
The Pomeranian.
Evil Pomeranian.
I forgot about that.
It looks like the cat from Basil the Great Mouse Detective that eats the little mouse in the movie. It looks just like a cat.
Oh, it does.
It's so, it's very controversial scene in a kid's movie.
So we know that the other dog was based on a dog that you had at the time. Was this one also based on a dog you had, or was this just
that one? That was definitely. They said it had to be a Pomeranian, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. So that was definitely a Pomeranian for sure.
Oh man,
I love the eyes on it because it's not like they're just black. It's just like they're just really, really big eyes.
It's got like 600 teeth too. It's like how many more teeth could you put in that little mouth? I don't know. Nobody was counting teeth back then.
When you guys draw the creatures with like drool and all that, and it's like really like gross like drool coming out of their mouths. Because Tim did that too.
The cover always made me think of like Blade Trinity, because there was a Pomeranian in that film that they turned into like a vampire dog. So
yeah.
That connection. I was like, I've seen that dog before.
No, I do remember that now. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Man.
No, so
yeah, we've had. I was gonna say we've had several pugs. We're on our third pug. This one's named Zeus, and he's in my office. And every time I'm out walking with him, I kid you not, somebody go, "Oh, from Men in Black, the dog from Men in Black." I'm like, "Yep, the dog, yeah, same kind of thing."
I love that. No, and I mean, like I said, these cover arts are just awesome. I can't even really put into words like why I love these. I guess I just love because every single one's almost like a POV. It's like you're in the reader's perspective when you're looking at this, where most Goosebumps like covers sometimes didn't do that. Most of them did, because sometimes putting yourself in the situation is like pretty interesting. It looks more threatening, like especially like going back to All Day Nightmare, like that's like you're up in a tree with werewolves down there. Like that's creepy.
There it is.
Or
that'll always be my favorite one.
Looking at a nasty bird.
And I think like it was just trying to find the book, like, and at the time not knowing what, because not having internet at the time, not knowing what it would even look like when I found number 42. All I knew was that there was 42, and I was like, okay. And I remember when I finally saw it, I was like, man, that is a sick cover and everything. And I think it all just was like that package deal of like finding it. And then when I did, I was like, well, that's automatically my favorite.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, here, I quickly pulled up the Night of a Thousand Claws.
That's
cover.
it. That's my wife.
And I do notice now it is like a calico like cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. I like the white
the calico markings.
Yeah,
the calico markings are definitely our cat at the time, and yeah, I remember taking that. I wish I had that Polaroid. That would be hilarious to see. Yeah, this was all back before digital cameras and anything like that, phones and all that stuff. None of that was around. So I mean,
just before
phones or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
Right before the new millennium.
I'm quickly
like it was a very interesting time from what I was told. Like that 99, 98, 99 was like a very, I mean, I was only like 3, 4, but from what I've been told, it was a very, very interesting time because it was right before technology just kind of went crazy,
Yeah.
Boomed.
Yeah, it was, the internet was just dial up. So it was like incredibly slow. And then there was a thing called DSL.
Right. DSL. Yeah.
DSL came out, and that was like, oh, you were living high on the hog if you had DSL. And then I think cable modems sort of kind of made their way in after that. And once the cable modems came around, everybody was like, okay, we could. This is something that will, that's not too slow to use. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Netflix, not Netflix, what was it? Netscape, and there was a bunch of this stuff, and just kind of going through that. We lived in San Francisco at the time because of all the tech companies were going nuts out there, and my wife was working for an ad agency, and so they were hiring people right and left to come in and take care of all these companies that were coming in, just being invented, and yeah, it was an interesting time to kind of see that whole transition of how communication changed in that little span of a few years. It's wild, crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember how does that change your artwork? Because I mean, it's like we talked about. Like you came in on the age of digital, and that's why they picked you up. But now with AI, a lot of artists don't really like AI because now companies are using AI and not actual people to do artwork anymore.
Yeah.
Have you transitioned to any of the AI stuff, or have you kind of stuck with?
No, I haven't. And I was just talking to somebody the other day, and I'd heard from my agent again that one of the publishers was testing a cover that they had done, and they'll do this every once in a while. They'll have you commission something, and then they'll test it with an audience to see how it does. And somebody in the audience, apparently, who was testing, said that looks like an AI generated image, and they found out that somebody in the company, they did it in-house, the artwork was done in-house, that they had used an AI generated house of some sort of a house, like a haunted house or something like that, and everybody freaked out, and so they're really against it. The publishers are really, they're trying to avoid using it at all costs. So that made me feel good, because when this all started coming out a couple of years ago or a year ago, it was like, oh no, here we go, because it's hard enough getting to work these days anyway. But so far it hasn't been a problem with what we're doing, with what I do. But I can see it coming along being an issue. And just in general, as a creative person, it's kind of cool to know that somebody made that, a person made whatever, whether it's a song you're listening to or a book you're reading or art you're looking at, it takes the soul out of it, literally, when you don't have a person that's created it, in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
No, absolutely.
Yep. And
and you guys, being a writer and stuff like that, my daughter's a really good writer, and it's nice to know that she's doing all of her college applications earlier this year, and they have to write essays, and she's a really good writer. And it's kind of sad when I think about some of the essays to get into college, or a lot of these kids are using AI and to write their stuff, and it's like you got to compete with the computer now. So but hopefully it won't catch on, and I'm hoping anyway.
Well, it'll never replicate what a real person can do, even digitally, because everybody always talks about how AI just can never seem to look right. There's a lot of people who can look at AI or look at a piece of art and say, like, that looks AI generated. Fortunately, people haven't quite lost your minds yet.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But maybe we'll get there at some point. Who knows? Hopefully not.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I could see it getting better and better and better. But I still love the idea of, like we were just talking about, how person created whatever you're enjoying. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And
absolutely. I mean, it's like, that's one of the reasons many of us got into Goosebumps in the first place, was the cover art. I mean, I may have not read every single book that's been out there from all the Give Yourselves and everything. I mean, I've read most of them so far, but I still collect them mostly for the covers. Like, I collect the art. Most of my house is all art.
Display purpose. So it's for that display purpose.
It's literally just how most of us got started.
Awesome.
So without it conveying that emotion to us that we connected with, feeling what the artist did at the time. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Point. And I mean, we talked a lot about it today, but I'm curious, like, because you worked with the Give Yourself Goosebumps, and then once those ended, you unfortunately didn't do anything else with the series. But all these years later, I mean, like, we talked about this already, even before we started. It's just like, this franchise has such a big fan base now. It's got such a cult following, and you have kids who, grew up with those books and are now adults, and they're passing it on to their kids. I can imagine, being a part of that is, knowing that you had a part in all that was probably a pretty surreal experience.
It is, and it's an extreme honor to be able to have worked on something like that. And at the time, I mean, I knew it was cool because it was fun to work on, but I didn't really know that it was going to be. And I just don't think about it. You guys who read them as young people or grow up, and you still dig it, and that's cool, man. It's so humbling as an artist to have people that like your work. And that people that like collect your work, even, that's really, really cool. It makes my heart warm, just knowing that you guys think it's cool. So
absolutely,
awesome. And it was really neat to be a part of that. Very
absolutely,
cool.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You have no idea how much we love it.
I might have some idea.
It's like dedicate our lives, literally, some of us, like, for this franchise, and. It's love, it's life, it's Goosebumps.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, that's gonna do it for today's episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today and talking with us about Goosebumps. It was a complete honor.
My pleasure. No, the honor was mine. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I'll look for all that stuff, and if I can find anything, I promise I'll send it to you, and you can share it away.
And is there any place that our audience can find you? Website, social media, anything?
Craig at Craig White Illustration is where most of my work is. And it doesn't look anything like the Goosebumps stuff. So if you go there, you're probably going to go, what is this? It's most of the stuff I do now is photography based photo illustration. So it's like I do a lot of romance book. I'm still doing book covers. I've probably done literally thousands of book covers in my time doing this. So I've been doing it since all this started, and I haven't stopped. So most of the stuff is photography based, so it doesn't really look like this cool stuff. I wish I could do this cool stuff again. Hopefully, maybe someday. But yeah, Craig at CraigWhiteIllustration.com. Sorry, that's my website address. So yeah.
Alrighty, and I will we'll make sure to include a link to that website in the description below, so you guys at home can go check that out. Please support Craig White if you can. He's an amazing artist. And again, thank you so much for coming on and, just talking about Goosebumps with us.
Thank you. It's been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
really
of course,
yes.
as always, make sure you follow the rest of the Goosebumps crew, Goosebumps Austin Fan Bjorn Panelick, Shaw and Nick Shaw, and Michael Lillquist, the Ultimate Goosebumps Man, on all their social medias and their YouTubes, because they really, really do deserve it. And as always, give us a sub over here at the Goosebumps channel and the Goosebumps Crew YouTube channel. We've just crossed, at the time of recording this, 400 subscribers on YouTube. That is awesome, guys. Let's get it way above that. We want to get way more up there. So make sure you comment, subscribe, and share the Goosebumps Crew podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio, wherever you can find podcasts. And until next time, everybody, this has been the Goosebumps Crew podcast. And from all of us here at the Goosebumps Crew podcast, we want to make sure to wish you all to take care, stay safe, and have a very scary day.